Hi, I'm Acoustic Guitar contributing editor Sean McGowan. In this weekly workout lesson, we're going to be taking a look at double stops. Double stops are essentially two notes played simultaneously, and they can be in any interval. In this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at thirds, both minor and major thirds, tenths, sixths, and fourths and fifths. What's great about double stops is that they can be integrated seamlessly into your lead playing and your rhythm playing. So you can take any kind of a melodic riff or a solo and fatten it up by adding a harmony by way of an interval and then create a double stop line if you're taking a solo, or if you just want to create a nice melodic lead break if you're writing a song. And then if you're playing rhythm, it's a nice sort of sparse way to outline the harmony because you're not playing full chords, yet depending on which interval you're using, and we're going to go through this, you can really effectively outline the chord with any given interval, whether it's a third or a sixth. And especially if you're playing in a group with another guitar player and he or she are playing more full chords, you can, if you don't want to get in the way of that, you can play a double stop line on top of that, and they'll go together quite nicely. So here we go with week one. Okay, in the first week, we're going to take a look at outlining thirds in both the scales and different arpeggios. And you'll notice in the article, week one is set up with three different tonal areas, so to speak. Major 7 and a major scale fingering to go with that, a dominant 7th chord, and the mixolydian or dominant scale to go with that. And finally, a minor 7th chord arpeggio in double stops using thirds, and a Dorian minor 7 type of scale to accompany that. And this is great practice because not only does it make a great technical workout for both hands, it'll start getting some of these patterns more familiar on the guitar neck. So the next time you're taking a solo, instead of just playing a regular, a normal arpeggio figure, you can then harmonize those with the correct double stops. So here we go. The first couple of examples in week one are essentially a major 7th arpeggio played in thirds, and then a major scale played in thirds. So here's the major 7th arpeggio. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... And the A major scale in thirds, 3 and 4 and... And it's also a good idea to practice the scales moving down as well. So you can either start from the top of the scale and move down, or just play the scale up and down, such as... And that will get your hands accustomed to playing these scale patterns that are probably already familiar to you, but now playing them in double stops of thirds. Okay, week one, second example, outlining double stops for dominant 7th arpeggio in thirds, and also the mixolydian scale in thirds. Here we go, here's the arpeggio, an A7 arpeggio. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... And the scale, a little slower, 3 and 4 and... And here's week one, the third example, using minor 7th arpeggios in thirds and then a Dorian scale harmonized in thirds. Here's the A minor 7 arpeggio. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... And the Dorian scale, 3 and 4 and... at some point you want to get to where you're sort of almost pivoting the hand back and forth, especially if you just want to come up with a lick that's drawn from this scale pattern. It's nice to just sort of pivot the hand back and forth. So maybe if your line is going to be based out of this part of the scale, you'll see what I'm doing is sort of like hinging the hand back and forth to grab those minor third and major third intervals. So my hand isn't really moving a whole lot, it's just sort of rocking back and forth, mostly with the first finger, to grab that 2-fret spread there. So that will help a lot. Just practice it very slow, but when you get to the point where it's fast enough so you can drop in a line, it's just sort of pivoting back and forth. Okay, in week 2, we're going to be doing the same workout as week 1, but this time instead of using intervals of thirds, we're going to be using intervals of tenths, which is basically a third moved up an octave. So for example, if we have a major third starting on A and C sharp, if we take that C sharp and put it up an octave, now we have this. So that major third becomes a major tenth, which is a really beautiful interval. There's lots of air and space, and it's really great, again, if you're playing with another guitar player and you want to stay out of their way. So the first part of week 2 will be outlining our major 7th and major scales in tenths. Okay, week 2, an A major 7th arpeggio in tenths and also an A major scale. 3 and 4 and... By the way, for these examples, you'll want to use hybrid picking with your picking hand. So depending on whether you play finger style, just use a thumb and fingers, IM, to get the upper line. Or if you're using a thumb pick, you can just use the thumb pick on the lower note and grab the 10th with your index or middle finger, whatever's more comfortable. And if you're playing with just a conventional flat pick, I use my middle finger to articulate the higher notes. So again, that major 7th arpeggio is... So it's pick and middle finger on that higher note on the G string to start with. And then if you want to switch to your ring finger to grab the top E string, that might be more comfortable for you. Either way. And here's the A major scale. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, here's the second part of week 2. We're going to be working through dominant 7th arpeggios and also Mixolydian scale in tenths. Here's the A7 arpeggio. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And the Mixolydian scale in A. 2 and 3 and go and... In week 2, working through the minor 7th arpeggio and Dorian scales in tenths. Here's an A minor 7 arpeggio in tenths. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Sorry, I started that again. 3 and 4 and... And the Dorian scale. 3 and 4 and...